All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to break down a pretty wild system that literally aims to turn a giant physical liability. We're talking messy, chaotic wood waste into a trusted, verifiable digital asset. So this isn't just about recycling. Not really. It's about building what they call a digital refinery.
You know, when you first see a company that does this kind of work, it looks shockingly analog. It really does just look like a guy with a chainsaw and a muddy truck. You see the dumpsters, you see the grit, and you think you've got it all figured out. It just feels super old school.
But here's the twist. Underneath that really gritty exterior, there's an incredibly sophisticated tech stack working away. So the real question becomes, what if this isn't just a trucking company at all? What if what we're looking at is a brand new kind of refinery? One that doesn't just process the physical stuff, but also all the data attached to it, turning worthless trash into a high-value, auditable compliance asset.
Okay, to really wrap our heads around this, we have to start with an analogy, and it's a good one. For a minute, I want you to completely forget about wood waste, and instead, think about crude oil.
Look at the parallels here, right? Crude oil, straight out of the ground, is messy, it's toxic, and it's basically useless in that form. You can't put it in your car, it would completely wreck the engine. It has to be refined first. Well, the very same logic applies to a big bin of mixed construction wood. It's just a chaotic, potentially contaminated mess, it's a liability, and it needs to be processed to become anything pure and valuable.
So this entire digital refinery concept, the whole thing is built to solve one core, incredibly dangerous problem. It's what the industry calls the visual fallacy, and it really is the poison you just can't see. And that brings us to a really critical question. In a high-stakes industrial world, can you actually trust a simple smartphone camera to spot invisible chemical threats? Can it literally see poison? The answer is, well, it's complicated.
And this right here illustrates the problem perfectly. Just look at these two pieces of wood. To your eye, to my eye, and to a standard camera, they are identical. They've both got that same silvery gray look of wood that's been out in the sun and rain. But one is clean, totally harmless spruce, and the other is pressure-treated pine that's been saturated with arsenic. This is the visual fallacy in action. It makes just sorting by eye completely unreliable and, frankly, incredibly dangerous.
So what's the big deal? The stakes are astronomically high. We're talking about one mistake. One single piece of arsenic-laced wood that the AI misses, and it gets ground up with all the clean stuff. And just like that, you don't just poison one load of biofuel. You contaminate an entire supply chain, you trigger an absolute insurance nightmare, and you can easily destroy multi-million-dollar machinery. The domino effect is huge.
So, how on earth do you fight a poison you can't even see? Well, you build a paranoid, multi-layered defense system. You basically force every single truckload of wood to run what they call a digital gauntlet.
The whole process kicks off right on a smartphone, where an AI scans the wood. But here's the really smart part. The system operates on a precautionary principle. So if a user says, hey, this wood came from a demolition site, the AI's opinion gets automatically thrown out the window. The system just flags it as high risk, no questions asked, no matter how clean it looks. And that forces it to a central hub for way more serious verification.
And at that central hub, they bring out the heavy artillery, XRF scanners. These devices are the final check, the ultimate arbiter of truth. See, they don't see pixels like a camera does, they see atoms. An XRF gun basically shoots X-rays into the wood, and it can detect the specific atomic fingerprint of heavy metals like arsenic and copper, right through layers of dirt, paint, or grime. There is literally no hiding from it.
So after all that intense screening, the final product of this digital refinery isn't just a pile of clean wood chips. No way. It's the immutable, verifiable proof that comes with it. The data itself is the real asset here. All that data gets packaged into this formal 9-point certificate of origin. You should think of it like a digital passport for the product. It proves exactly where every kilogram of that wood came from and verifies its chemical purity. This document is everything. It's the final output of the whole refinery workflow that transforms the material from a waste liability, something that costs money to get rid of, into a certified compliance asset that companies can trust and regulators can easily audit. Okay, but all this amazing high-tech data capture has to eventually meet the harsh, messy reality of the physical world. And you have to wonder, where does this incredibly important compliance document actually end up? Because I can tell you, it's not on a nice 4K monitor in a warm, comfortable office.
And this is where the system's design is just brilliantly pragmatic. The final document it spits out is a stark, high-contrast, black and white PDF. Why? Because the designers are smart.
They know it's probably going to be faxed or printed out on a cheap inkjet that ran out of color ink 3 years ago. If they used red and green colors for safety warnings, those critical signals would just disappear in grayscale. This is what it means to design for industrial reality.
So what we have is this incredibly complex system, right? A fusion of heavy industry and high-tech AI. But you have to ask, is it a fragile glass cannon, something that's beautiful but is just going to shatter the second it meets reality? Or is this the actual blueprint for the future?
Now, the skeptics have a good point. They'll tell you this thing creates a potential liability minefield. A single failure could have massive insurance and legal consequences. But the proponents argue that with huge regulatory cliffs coming up, like the 2029 landfill ban for this kind of wood, the old dump-it-and-forget-it model is already dead. This new system replaces blind trust with hardcore verification. And you know what? That might be the only real path forward for the whole bioeconomy.
And that really leaves us with this final thought to chew on. In a world full of invisible threats and immense regulatory pressure, is it even possible to build a perfect system? Or is this kind of paranoid, multi-layered, highly verified defense the only realistic way we're going to be able to turn our trash into trust?